You're still waiting, aren't you? Still waiting for the apology that's never coming. Still waiting for the moment they finally see what they did to you, what they cost you, what they broke inside you when you weren't looking. You've replayed it 1,000 times. The conversation, the betrayal, the silence that followed. And somewhere deep in that replay, you keep hoping it ends differently. It doesn't. It won't. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner your real life begins. Let's stop pretending. Let's stop dressing this up in polite language and careful phrasing. They hurt you, not accidentally, not in that ambiguous way where you could convince yourself they didn't know better. They saw you clearly enough to know exactly where to press, exactly what to take, exactly how far they could push before you folded. And then they pushed anyway. That's not confusion. That's not complexity. That's a choice they made about you, about your value, about how much they were willing to care. And they decided, not much. Here's the thing nobody tells you about being the loyal one, the deep one, the one who feels everything at full volume. You walk into rooms and immediately start reading people. You sense tension before it's spoken. You forgive before you're even owed an apology because you understand, or you think you do, that people are complicated, that everyone is fighting something, that grace is the higher road. And so you give it, endlessly, preemptively, until you've given so much that there's a hole in you shaped exactly like all the love you handed out to people who were pocketing it without ever intending to give anything back. That hole? That's not a character flaw. That's evidence. It's proof that you were real in a world full of people performing realness. It's proof that you showed up, every single time, with your whole chest open and your hands empty of tricks. The problem was never that you loved too much. The problem was that you aimed that love at targets that were never built to hold it. Stop blaming yourself for not seeing it sooner. Stop doing that. Stop sitting in your own living room acting as prosecutor, judge, and defendant all at once, running through every moment where you should have known, should have walked, should have demanded better. That self-prosecution is a luxury you can no longer afford. It is eating the years you have left. Every hour you spend dismantling your own instincts is an hour they're not spending thinking about you at all. Let that land. They are not awake at 3 a.m. They are not replaying conversations. They are not holding their own behavior up to the light and examining it for cracks. They won't. They don't. They can't. Not because they're monsters, though some of them are, but because people who take advantage of depth and loyalty and emotional generosity are rarely capable of the kind of self-reflection that produces real accountability. They've built entire personalities around avoiding that reckoning. They are very, very good at it. You will not be the one who breaks through. You are not the exception to this rule. So what does that mean for you? It means closure is a myth you have to stop chasing. Closure isn't something they give you, it's something you take. You build it yourself, with your bare hands, out of the raw material of your own decision to move forward. You decide, not because you've forgiven them, not because you've made peace with what happened, but because you refuse to let their inability to grow become the ceiling of your life. That decision is yours. It has always been yours. You've just been waiting for permission from the wrong people. Think about what you've been giving away. Not just time, not just energy. Think about the version of yourself that existed before you started shrinking to fit into spaces that were never designed for you. Think about the ideas you stopped sharing because someone told you, with their rolling eyes or their dismissive silence, that your ideas were too much. Think about the ambitions you downgraded because someone who should have stood beside you instead stood in your way and called it love. Think about the dreams you quietly buried because the person holding your hand while you buried them was the same person who handed you the shovel. You did that. You allowed it. And I'm not saying that to punish you. I'm saying it because the same capacity that allowed it is the same capacity that can reverse it. You are not a passive participant in your own life. You never were. You just got confused about which direction to aim your power. Here is a truth that will feel like cold water. The people who diminished you are not exceptional. They are ordinary. Profoundly, depressingly ordinary. What looked like confidence was performance anxiety wearing a mask. What looked like superiority was insecurity that had learned to punch first. What looked like not needing you was someone who desperately needed to feel like they didn't need anything, because needing things had hurt them once, long ago, and they decided the world owed them a debt. None of that is your fault. None of it was ever about your worth. It was always about their wounds. You just had the misfortune of being in the radius, but you can walk out of the radius. That's what nobody tells you. You don't have to explain yourself on the way out. You don't have to write a letter. You don't have to wait for them to understand why you're leaving, because understanding requires the kind of introspection they've spent years avoiding. You just leave, quietly, deliberately, like someone who finally realizes the building is on fire and decides that watching the smoke is no longer worth the damage to their lungs. Silence is not weakness. Let me say that again. Silence is not weakness. Every instinct in you has been trained by people who benefited from your expressiveness, from your tendency to explain yourself, to justify, to reach across the distance they created and try to pull them toward understanding. They counted on that. They used that. Your willingness to bridge every gap, to do the emotional labor of both sides of every conversation, to hold them accountable gently because you were afraid that holding them accountable clearly would push them away. That was a gift they extracted from you without asking. And you gave it, over and over, because you thought love required endless translation. It doesn't. Real connection doesn't require you to speak slowly and simply just to be heard. Real connection doesn't require you to dress down your intelligence, muffle your intensity, or pretend you want less so that someone else can feel like enough. Real connection is two people showing up at full capacity and finding that there's room for both of them. What you were doing wasn't connection, it was interpretation, and you were the only one doing it. So when you go silent now, when you stop reaching out, stop explaining, stop sending the message you've been drafting in your head for 6 weeks, that silence is a sentence. It says, I have decided that my energy is worth more than this. It says, I am no longer auditioning for a role in my own story. It says, the version of me that bent backward to be understood by people who had no intention of understanding me is retired. That silence is not passive. That silence is the loudest thing you've ever said. Distance is the same. When you create distance from people who diminished you, you are not running away. Running away implies fear. This isn't fear. This is discernment. This is you finally applying to your own life the same standard you'd apply to anything else you cared about. Is this good for me? Is this making me better, larger, more alive? Or is this slowly grinding me down into something I don't recognize? Distance is the physical answer to that question when the emotional answer has been clear for a long time. Now let's talk about what happens on the other side of that distance. Because there's a version of this story where you leave, and you're angry, and the anger curdles into bitterness, and you spend the next decade nursing a wound instead of building a life. That version is real, and it is available to you. Some people choose it. Some people make an identity out of how they were wronged, and they carry that identity everywhere, and it protects them from ever having to be vulnerable again, which feels like safety, but is actually just a longer, slower kind of dying. Don't do that. The anger is legitimate. Sit with it. Let it tell you what it knows, that you deserved better, that your standards were not too high, that the people who told you you were too sensitive were exactly as sensitive as you. They just aimed their sensitivity outward as aggression instead of inward as empathy. Let the anger say all of that, and then use it. Use it like fuel, not to destroy anyone else. That's a waste, and it gives them more of your attention than they've earned. Use it to build something so undeniably yours that no one will ever again be able to convince you that you need their permission to exist in your own life. There is a quiet revenge available to you that is more devastating than anything loud. It is simply becoming yourself, fully, without apology, without permission, without the diluted half version of yourself you were performing to make other people comfortable. It is waking up every morning and choosing your ambitions over your resentments. It is succeeding in the specific ways that the people who doubted you said you couldn't. It is living well, not as a performance for them, not with one eye always checking whether they're watching, but genuinely, privately, completely well. That is the revenge that cannot be argued with, cannot be dismissed, cannot be minimized. It simply exists, and it is yours. Stop seeking validation from the people who withheld it. This is harder than it sounds, because the brain doesn't distinguish cleanly between the people we love and the people who hurt us, especially when those are the same people. You will catch yourself, even now, imagining their reaction to your success, imagining their face when they realize what they walked away from, imagining the moment they finally understand your worth because the rest of the world made it undeniable. I understand that impulse. It's human, it's understandable, and it is keeping you tethered to them in a way that serves only them. Your success is not for them. Your healing is not for them. Your transformation is not a message you're sending. It's a life you're living. The moment you start building your future as a reaction to someone else's opinion of you, even when that reaction is proving them wrong, you've let them author the story again. You are not a rebuttal. You are not a comeback. You are a person with a life that exists entirely independent of whether they ever recognize its value. Let that be enough. It is enough. You are allowed to grieve what you wanted them to be. You are allowed to mourn the relationship as it existed in your head. The one where they showed up, where they came through, where they saw you clearly and chose you anyway. That relationship was real to you. The grief of losing something that never fully existed is one of the strangest, loneliest griefs there is, because you can't point to a single moment and say, "Here, this is where it ended." It never fully began. And you held on to the potential of it long after the evidence had made itself clear. Grieve that. Give yourself permission to grieve that without also needing to prosecute yourself for having hope. Hope is not stupidity. It's one of the most human things about you. But grief has a season. It is not a permanent address. At some point, and you will know when, you have to pick up what the experience taught you and carry only that forward, leaving the weight of what it cost you on the ground behind you. What did it teach you? It taught you the specific shape of what you will not accept anymore. It taught you that your gut, that quiet voice you talked yourself out of listening to 100 times, was right. It taught you that your sensitivity is not the liability they made it feel like. It's a precision instrument, and like all precision instruments, it needs to be aimed at things worthy of its accuracy. It taught you that you are capable of surviving the thing you were most afraid of losing. That's not nothing. That's everything. Here is what I need you to understand about the people who hurt you. They are not learning. Not from losing you. Not from the consequences of their own behavior. Not from the gap your absence has left, if they've noticed it at all. Some of them have already replaced you with someone else willing to play the same role you vacated. Some of them have constructed a version of events where you were the problem, where your leaving was the proof of your instability, where they are the sensible one in the story, and you are the difficult one who couldn't handle them. They have told this version to anyone who asked. They believe it. It protects them. And they will keep believing it because the alternative, the truth, requires them to sit in discomfort they have spent their entire lives learning to avoid. You cannot fix that. You are never going to fix that. The most painful part of caring deeply about people is accepting that your care does not have the power to make them capable of things they have actively chosen not to develop. Love does not unlock potential in people who have decided they prefer the comfort of their limitations. That's not a failure of your love. That's just the reality of free will applied in directions you didn't choose. What you can fix, what you can change, fundamentally, starting from wherever you're standing right now, is your relationship with yourself. That relationship has taken some damage. Years of being told, in words and in silences and in choices made around you and without you, that your needs were excessive, your feelings were dramatic, your standards were unrealistic. You started to believe it. You started to turn down the volume on yourself just to keep the peace. That's the deepest wound, and it's the one that deserves your most urgent attention now. Turn the volume back up, slowly, if you need to. One honest conversation with yourself at a time. Start by naming what you actually want, not what you think you should want, not what seems realistic given your recent experiences, but what you actually want. What you'd want if the last few years hadn't spent so much time convincing you to aim lower. Write it down. Look at it. Let it feel impossible for a moment, and then let that feeling pass. Impossible is just unfamiliar. You know this. You've done difficult things before. You did the difficult thing of caring for people who didn't deserve it. That took enormous strength. Point that strength somewhere worthy of it. Set the standard. Not aggressively, not as a test designed for people to fail, but clearly from a place of calm self-knowledge. Decide what you will and will not move on. Decide what access to you looks like. Decide what you require in terms of basic decency, basic reciprocity, basic regard, and then hold to it. Not because you're punishing anyone, but because you've spent long enough operating below your own standard, and you remember, even dimly, what it felt like to be full. You want to be full again. You deserve to be full again. The people who are meant for you will not make you feel crazy for wanting that. They won't make you feel high maintenance for having emotions. They won't disappear when things get complicated or punish you with distance when you try to have a real conversation. They will simply be there, present, genuinely interested in the person you actually are, rather than the version of you that's easier for them. Those people exist. They are not a fantasy. But you will not find them while you're still giving your best hours to the ones who proved they didn't want them. This is the moment. Not tomorrow, not when things settle, not when you feel ready, because feeling ready is often just another way of waiting for permission from something outside yourself. Right now, in whatever condition you're in, still bruised, still figuring it out, still occasionally tempted to send that message, you make the decision. The decision that you are the most important ongoing project in your life, that your growth is non-negotiable, that the version of you that exists 12 months from now will look back on this moment and be grateful that you chose, here, today, to stop spending yourself on people and situations that were never going to give you a return. You do not need to announce this. You do not need to perform it. You don't owe anyone an explanation of your transformation. You just build it, quietly, persistently, every single day, until one morning you wake up and realize that the things that used to make you feel small now just feel distant, like weather from a season that's already passed. You'll know you've arrived not because someone finally validated you, or finally apologized, or finally understood what they had. You'll know because you'll realize, with a quiet and unshakable certainty, that their understanding is no longer the thing you're waiting for. Your silence will speak in rooms you haven't entered yet. Your growth will be visible in ways you can't predict. Your success, not just professional, but the success of becoming someone with boundaries and self-knowledge, and a life that genuinely reflects who you are, will be the most complete answer to every person who ever underestimated you. Not because you built it to prove them wrong, but because you built it to be right for yourself. And that rightness, that alignment, that finally living on your own terms energy, radiates in ways that no argument, no confrontation, no attempt to make them understand ever could. They won't learn, you will. That's always been the difference. That's always been the thing that separated you from them. Not that you were better, but that you were willing to look at yourself honestly, to take in information, to feel things fully, and let those feelings change you. They call that weakness. It is the only real strength there is. Now use it. Get up. Not for them. For the version of yourself that has been waiting, patiently, underneath all this noise, for you to finally decide that enough is enough, and you are enough, and the life you want is not a reward you have to earn from people who were never qualified to grant it. It was always yours. It is yours right now. Go take it back.